when I read Carl Phillips's work, it's like when you go to the opticians and you can't read past the third line, but then they put those lenses in front of your eyes and you can read down the bottom line. You can actually read lines that haven't been printed yet. That's how good the lenses are. And that's what Carl's poems do for me. They just, he wouldn't want to be called a saint, but to me, Carl is the patron saint of intimacy and the patron saint of the passing of time and where intimacy and time meet. A wonderful line from his poem, Before All of This. And as usual, early summer seems already to hold inside it the split fruit of late fall, doing that magical thing that poems can do, where time can happen in several ways at once, several dimensions. As he writes as well, this is the deep light you've waited for, as though and there are places so ordinary in these poems that Carl illuminates them for us into places that are absolutely, absolutely extraordinary. Fantastic. Carl Phillips.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you, judges and everyone for being here. It's very nerve-wracking. But it's a great honor to be here and reading in such fine company. I have 5 poems. This is called Regime. As I took off my clothes, I watched him taking his own off. The sound of rain was for once not the sound of wind shaking the rain steadily loose from a stand of river birch. It's hard to believe in them, the beautiful colors of extinction. But these are the colors. This is called Stop Shaking. Not the bell, I said. One of us did. Not the bell, but the smaller sounds, barely noticeable, trapped inside it. It seemed the kind of thing I might say to remind myself, when I've forgotten again, what I want to believe even now matters most: precision, though it's hard these days to know for sure what's true. Isn't every season, no matter what we call it, shadow season? Didn't Timothy used to mean a meadow, a common name, back then at least, for the sweetest grass? I keep making the same avoidable few mistakes that I've always made, and then regretting them less. Think of all the suffering happening everywhere, all the time, for nothing. What if memory is just the dead, flourishing differently from how they flourished alive? This poem is called Scattered Snows to the North. It's the title poem. Does it matter that the Roman Empire was still early in its slow unwinding into never again? Then, as now, didn't people burst into tears in front of other people or in private for no reason that they were willing to give, or they weren't yet able to, or for just no reason? I've never stopped missing you, I used to practice saying, for when I'd need those lines, as I assumed I would, given what I knew then, nothing really, about things like love, trust, the betrayal of trust, and a willfulness that's only deepened inside me all these years, during which I can almost say I've missed no one, though it hurts to say it. Honestly, the Roman Empire, despite my once having studied it, barely makes any sense to me now, past the back and forthing of patrolled borders as the gauge and proof of hunger's addictive and erosive powers. But there were people, of course, too, most of them destined to be unremembered, who filled in their drawn lives anyway, because what else is there to where the edges gave out? If it was night, they lit fires, presumably. Tears were tears. Fist and palm. There are plenty who'd hardly recognize me now. I used to be that cruel, by which I mean I was frightened mostly, and now I'm mostly not. Joy, if only flickeringly, each day astounds me. The man I used to be dismounts, relents for a bit, before digging his boots, streaked with longing, my own longing, what I can't help, hard into my sides again, into the man I've become. His way of reminding me we've only stopped for rest, a short rest, some water. We've years to go still. He has his job. I have mine. Speechlessness is not an option, he whispers into my ear. He spits on the words themselves after, as if to make them stay, or just to make sure I'm listening. But I'm always listening, as I always obey. Isn't this obedience, these songs I've built from things too difficult to speak of? And I'll finish with the last poem in the book. It's called Rehearsal. By then, the point of the forest was the getting through it. Then it lay behind them, all but its sharper details, flies licking at dried blood, I think, on a random tree stump, getting swiftly lost, its muffled bird song, too, that had come less, it seemed, from the trees than from beneath mostly, as if somewhere deep, deep inside the earth. Maybe meeting you has been the one good reason I lasted so long in a world that must eventually not include me, I almost said to him. Past the forest, the shore, where the land ended, where briefly the waves hitting it seemed the latest example of how squandering momentum can become routine, while upon the waves, the taken-for-grantedness of shadow play seemed its own example, how one way to prove power can be to quietly assume it. Then, except for offshore, where the dark lay like, defiantly, a ship at anchor, everything was itself, as it always had been. They took off their shoes, their clothes. They swam out to the dark ship. Thank you.